So I'm going to go over a lot of video ideas that I have, but I'm also going to give you a lot of the information that I plan on putting in these videos. So it's actually going to be hopefully fairly inspiring to you. You can vote on the video idea that you like in the comments below. Just put number 8 or number 10, whatever. So we actually have a lot of video ideas. Let's get started. Put your vote in the comment. Okay, video idea number 1. This is in no particular order. When to move the mic. So this could be, okay, you're mixing something. When is it that you should have gone in there and moved the mic instead of trying to do EQ? When could have this been saved by some sort of mic position versus using EQ to fix it? I have an example of the kick-in with an SM7B. Not sure why it's an SM7B, but I think what I'm getting at here is that if you take a SM7B that it's not even really a kick mic, but it works great. I mean, just about on anything, right? But you could actually throttle up the attack of the microphone, attack of the kick drum by shoving it more into the kick drum. Usually I go about 30% inside of the drum. If you get to about 50, you get even more attack, and about 60% inside the drum, you're now in metal territory. So much more attack, more typewriter sound. This could go with drums. We could cover proximity effect, dying in the mid-range, using the angle according to the drum. So right there you have lows, mids, and then the highs, you actually protect the highs because you can't really give a mic more highs without EQ. So you protect the highs, and what you do is you point the null towards the cymbals. So you have low, mids, highs, proximity effect, angle to the drum, and protect the highs. And by that, you avoid a lot of issues in drum recording. So we could go into that, or we could go into something like vocal recording, perhaps. I don't know. But when to move the mic, this is idea 1. When to go in there and move the mic versus using EQ. Okay, so idea number 2, and I haven't read these, so some of these might be a little weird. Sidechain kick out. I'm not sure why I would put that, but that doesn't make any sense. Idea 3, compression technique kick. Yeah, that's a good one, because compression on kick can be hard. Sometimes it's like, wow, there it is. Sounds awesome. And then sometimes it's just like, what am I doing wrong? I can't quite get it. A lot of times you'll just find that, just like swapping out the kick mic, it's kind of a use the right tool situation. So you swap out the kick mic, all of a sudden everything's great. Then you swap out a compressor where you're not having any luck before, all of a sudden it sounds great. So that's tip number 1, is just switch out the compressor. Tip number 2 is to really not only experiment with the attack and the ratio, but the key is in the release time. So don't go too fast of a release. You want to let the kick finish ringing out, which it shouldn't be ringing that long, but you want the kick to finish making its sound, and then the release to come up. And that's really the key to good attack with a kick drum. It's kind of counterintuitive like that. Usually you'd think, oh, I need more attack, I'll do something with the attack knob. It's a little counterintuitive, but you also have saturation, which is insanely helpful. So between those two, you can really compress and mix kick drum. So that's idea 3. Idea 4. When to use saturation on drums, such as kick, snare, toms, controlling the overheads. So yeah, this is a great one too. Types of saturation, why you'd want to use saturation. Saturation's pretty cool because it is a combination of 2 different effects. You have EQ and you have compression. And then between those, you have saturation. So you're controlling dynamic range, but you're also adding harmonics and changing the tone. So it's kind of a 2-for-1. It's a cross between EQ and compression. In fact, it is a it is not in the time sphere as far as controlling those dynamics. You don't have to set the attack and release time to control the dynamics with saturation, which is pretty cool. It's great for peaks. It's great for adding complexity to low end. Subtle amounts, the types of amounts that it's hard to hear when you solo the kick drum, especially the kick out. But then if you put it in a mix, you'll hear it. You got to bury it. It's counterintuitive. You bury the thing, and the subtleties that you're adding actually help to project it through the mix. So it's like taking a step back on a painting. You get too close, you don't know what you're looking at. You got to step back and, okay, I get it now. So listen in context, add saturation for complexity, snare, toms. Man, that's fantastic for that, actually. Okay, so that was idea 4. Idea 5, easy overhead rig you can't screw up. So this is a big one, because not that you need to even use the overheads. I don't care if you use the overheads, but it's just a good starting point, okay? Because you want to make sure everything's working together, okay? It's just an outline that you can erase later. So the overhead rig you can't screw up, that'd be XY, like the Lewitt Air mics, stereo bar, very important. It makes it so easy. It really does. ORTF for more flavor. And that's a favorite one of mine. I love ORTF. It's basically just kind of pointing outwards, a little greater than 90. You just kind of eyeball it. Doesn't have to be perfect. Yeah, look it up, but it is a fantastic sounding technique for drum overheads. So I can get into that and why it's so helpful. One of the big reasons is that if you have a less than ideal room, you can control the reflections over just a smaller amount of your room, and you can put your overheads in that area. So if you have like a sliding glass door or a massive window, you could put panels at very select spots in the room, and you could actually get it to where there's a sweet spot where you can put an overhead, and you have kind of the best case scenario. Whereas if you did space pair, it might be kind of hit or miss on one or the other mics. You might have a lot of low end and one mic over here, and then this other mic, it's in like a null of the low end, and maybe it has weird reflections over here. So you put your mics together, at least they have the same issues. And then your treatment is also kind of shaping that, and you can kind of create a kind of a safe sweet spot where you put your overhead. So that's helpful. Stereo, you can angle the attack, based on how you approach the kit. Makes it either wider by coming from the front, or coming by an angle actually narrows the kit. Then you have the height. A lower height actually widens the kit out quite a bit. You go up in height and it narrows the kit. So you have 2 different methods of narrowing or widening the overhead picture with the same configuration. Pick any of these. Same configuration, ORTF or XY, or Bloomline if you're using ribbons. But the only limitation is your treatment. So if you have very little treatment, you have to stay kind of close to the drums. Otherwise, you get mostly room. And so you want to consider how much are you planning to compress these overheads in the mix, and can you live with the amount of room sound you're getting in those overheads? So the amount of treatment you have is basically the amount of flexibility you have on where your mic positions are. If you have very little treatment, you're going to have to be very close to all your sources, vocals, everything, and you're not going to have many options. So that's part of the reason why treatment is so good. It gives you options. You can record stuff at a foot away, instead of just 4 inches out from a source. Idea 6, avoid overcompressing the overheads. So yeah, different things to listen for in overhead compression. This is one of my more popular videos a couple years ago, just turning knobs and showing what to listen for. I could do kind of an update on that. And also just using saturation to keep the snare drum in check. And that's kind of a big one, That's kind of the loudest thing in overheads typically. So yeah, that is overhead. That is idea number 6. So idea 7 is, let's see here, great drum sounds with common or average mics. Obviously, it was on a kind of a drum idea kick, just kind of spitting out the ideas. And so this would be basic mic choice philosophy, mic positions, maybe doing it with 8 channels. So kind of just a philosophy of why I'm choosing certain mics for certain drums. Just real quick, the lower the frequency, the more color you want. The higher the frequency, the more neutral you want, and the more balanced you want. So this is why you find that for kick drum, it matters a lot which mic you pick, and you switch it out, and it's like, oh yeah, that's great. Same thing with floor tom. Snare drum, rack tom, maybe not so much. I mean, a little bit, but you know, the higher you get, the less it matters. Let's just stick to kick and floor tom, okay? Those mics are made to give you color. Now you go to overheads or even hi-hat. The last thing you want is to say, oh, let me make it more brighter or more hi-hat. Let the hi-hat be even more obnoxious. We can do that with the low end because we want the kick to sound even more bigger, but we don't want the hi-hat to be more obnoxious. So it is more of a balancing game. So that's why we have ribbons, we have dark mics, we have detailed mics and dark mics like a ribbon, small diaphragms, even omni small diaphragms are a favorite of mine. So again, with the treatment, it gives you those options as well, and just beautiful, beautiful kind of dark and even sound. So low end colored, high end more balanced sound. A lot of these concepts are, you know, really stuff that I figured out through testing. I have 26 courses on my website at creativesoundlab.tv, and I've had to basically develop my own little theories and tricks, and it's kind of hands-on research, you know? So a lot of this stuff is from my courses. And so like raw tracks that rock, microphone selection, that's a course title, and that's where I kind of developed this idea. That was 7. Now this is 8. Great drum sounds without EQ. And it's kind of damaged here. But, yeah. So this is kind of an anti-mixing video. But, you know, phase flip, sliding tracks around. The concept of that, should you do it, should you not do it? Auto align, the plugin. Get into that. There's tons to talk about, actually. Compression. With drums, transient designer, tons to talk about. So this is idea 8, if you like that idea. Idea 9 is drum bus compression with any compressor. So take a compressor that's stock out of a DAW, or take the Arouser by Empirical Labs. How would I approach it differently for drum bus compression? Or, you know, take a free compressor like... what is it, like the Rhea comp from Kakos, you know, like the stock Reaper compressor is one of those that you're just kind of left with numbers in a slide, and it's kind of intimidating of like, where do you even begin with something like that? And so just going into that and being like, okay, how would you approach this? Here's kind of a starting point, you know, drum bus compressors, they can be VCAs, they could be maybe a FET, who knows. You know, some of mine, 5020 is a FET, for example. So what kind of timing would that be, etc. So that's idea number 9. Number 10. Idea number 10 is when to use space pair for drum overheads. So the concept of, you know, Ryan, you love ORTF and the kind of the stereo bar, but why would you go to a space pair? And the benefits of that. Showing the large diaphragm, maybe even small diaphragm, the width, maybe even cover a little bit of the Glenn Johns. So, yeah, why would you want to use space pair? What advantages does it have? Real quick, the large diaphragms don't do so hot on a stereo bar because I say that, okay, and I almost kick myself for saying it immediately. But if you think about this, is large diaphragms really don't like stuff coming in from the sides. They get some weird coloration off to the sides, off-axis coloration. So the small diaphragms are going to be a lot more consistent on the tone that you're getting off to the sides and to the front. The difference is not that great. So if you think of a stereo bar where you have two mics like this, you know, there's not really a mic pointed directly at the snare drum. Everything is off axis. You know, there's a couple elements like maybe the floor tom is directly pointed, you know, lined up with this mic and whatever. But the most important part of the kit, the snare drum, is not even, you know, going into directly any mic, any of the overhead mics. And so if you were to do a stereo bar with large diaphragms, you're going to get a lot of off-axis coloration. Sometimes in the ORTF, like, the mic is almost pointed out like that. I mean, it looks nuts, but that's just something to consider. And if you want to use large diaphragms, like the Lewitt 440 Pure is a great choice, super balanced. The Vanguard large diaphragm, that also is very good. I like that a lot. I had the stereo version. They have a mono version as well. But, you know, it's much better to have a space pair with large diaphragms because then your mics are actually looking down. Okay, next up is the overhead mic choice. How much does it matter? So we could do like I said, the Lewitt 440 Pure, the Vanguard, the 013, so maybe I'm thinking small diaphragms. So yeah, the Lewitt Air, the Vanguard V1, and the 13s by Soyuz. So how much does it matter? How much does it really make a difference? I think it makes a difference, but ultimately what makes the most difference is that the mic position is dead on. And of course, your drum tech and tuning and muffling is all set. So there's a lot of really easy things you can do to get a great drum sound that has nothing to do with how much money you spend in the microphone. It's a lot of fundamentals. This is a game of fundamentals. Getting those right so that you don't have to fix it in the mix. It's never a good idea. So that's idea 11. 12. Cheap mics versus expensive. What's the difference? So that'd be kind of cool, you know. Bring in a vocalist, show the difference, you know. Show a difference of the cheap mic, like a 440 Pure, which I think is a fantastic mic. It might sound a little vanilla compared to a more expensive Soyuz mic or one of the Violet JZ mics. What's the difference, especially in the context of a mix? You know, when you compress it, how does it stand up in the mix? We could try EQing it a little bit, but the real test is you kind of squash it and you throw it in the mix and you almost bury it and you see how it stands out. And based on how much options you have as far as that loudness, to me, is the judge of a great mic. You know, a great mic, I can just about bury it, and it still sounds great. I can pull it up, it doesn't hurt my ears, and it still sounds great. And there's just this kind of, forgiving range that you don't really have to have it at one level to make it sound good or to hide up some weird thing or sibilance or anything. It can kind of go anywhere in the mix, and it just sounds great. Also has a lot to do with vocal tone, so that's really the biggest thing. But a good mic really gives you the most options, and instead of having to kind of fix things later, it's more about just preserving what you have and not screwing it up in the mix. Okay, 13. 3 tools that reinvent your mic locker. Yeah, that'd be cool. So We have the kick pad by Earthworks. That's really cool for kick drum. You can take, SM7B, make it more like a kick mic. It has basically an EQ that is built in to a little adapter, basically. And so it scoops out some of the frequencies that you usually try to scoop out anyhow, and it gives you a more EQ'd sound right out of the mic. It also takes the volume down a bit so that you don't overdrive a preamp. Sometimes that can be an issue. So that's a favorite of mine. Then we have the launcher. The Soyuz launcher, this is something that's important because people keep talking about the cloud lifter. Now, here's the thing. If you have very basic gear, the cloud lifter is going to sound great to you. But if you have nice gear, then the cloud lifter might be a step down in quality. And this is important to note, is I've gone into a friend's studio and he's using a cloud lifter kind of as a default. And I said, well, but these are really good preamps. Like, have you tried it without? We tried it without, and all of a sudden the mic just sounded so much better. It was like that character of the preamp was all of a sudden there. It sounded amazing. And so to me, it was almost like, you got to really make sure that everything in your chain is quality. Don't just use something just because. So to me, the Soyuz launcher keeps that quality high. If you're using an $800 mic preamp, the Soyuz launcher is right on par with that. It's right on par with that, grade A mic preamp, whatever the heck that is. But, $1,000 mic preamp, it's at that quality, okay? But the launcher is like, what, $250 or something? So this is a great way to use a interface and do a lot of the heavy lifting with basically an inline preamp. So launcher was really designed around that SM7B just to get something on the road that sounded great. And it really does add some high-end. It adds some high-end clarity to that M201. Those are my favorite mics to use with it. So definitely, it's definitely helpful. And then pad uses. So just an inline pad, 20 dB. You can solder these together. Look up UPad 20 dB. Just Google it. It's 3 parts. It's usually a 150 ohm resistor and then like two 680s between. It's on pin 2 and 3 inline, and then the 150 goes between the 2 and 3, and that'll give you a 20 dB pad. That's great for taking stuff down so it doesn't distort a preamp, for example. Check it out, but that's an idea for you. Idea 14 is a kind of a mic review of the M201. They actually sent me this mic a while ago, and I've featured it a bunch. I just never did a sole video just on the 201. And this is a kind of a freak of nature. Like, it'll literally do anything except the super low stuff, kick and floor tom. But on rack tom, it's fine. It's awesome on rack tom. It is really great. I mean, you can do it on vocal with the pop screen. I've seen it used on overheads. I've attended a session with it used on overheads. Okay? It was a Joel Cameron session. Look him up. Rascal Audio, I believe. But I remember asking them about, what are these overheads? And he's like, well, they're actually a dynamic mic. So I filed that away, and years later I'm just like, oh, yes, I get to try out the 201. It is very fast and detailed for a dynamic mic. So we could cover that. That's idea 14. Idea 15, recording studio hacks. We have, okay. So graph tape on a flat, just tools, everyday carry for the studio, grapher's tape on the flashlight, XLR to 1/4 inch adapter. Let's see here. We can cover recording cool little things like headphones as a mic. You could just plug the headphones into a DI box, just put them in front of a drum set, or use a SM57 to check the line, like in a patch bay. You can actually, if you hook the 57 up to an output of a preamp, the output, you can actually hear yourself. Like if you talk into the mic going into the preamp, you actually can create a speaker of the output and verify that the preamp is working okay. So little cool studio hacks, studio kit kind of stuff. That's idea 15. Idea 16. Headphones, the most underrated monitor tool. Yeah, this is a good one. Let's see here. 300-ish and less. 3 months to learn. Yeah, I would say that's true. You can get a really good set of headphones for 300 or less, and you can fully learn those headphones. Like if you just listen a little each day, you can really learn those headphones in 3 months, and you would be very, very far along. I would say it would take years to learn monitors in a room and dial the room in and experiment with sound treatment and all this stuff. It's a constant kind of journey, but with headphones, all those variables are gone, and you just have the headphones to learn. Now, you do have headphone amps, and that's point number 2, so the amp matters. So it's a fairly easy way to do a upgrade kind of laterally across all of your headphones that you may own. You get a better headphone amp, all of a sudden, all 3 pairs of your headphones have a better headphone amp. And now you have different reference points. So it's a really good way to kind of build out a way of listening to mixes, checking mixes, making decisions very quickly, very cheaply. So this is a good one. And then also setting the headphones down on your desk and just listening, just quietly listening, maybe turn them up a little bit, but, just listening to how stuff comes through, just an open pair of headphones on a desk. How loud is that vocal? How loud is the snare? Can you hear the kick? Stuff like that. A lot of times I find that the kick is just really loud, like really loud. And if I don't check first on like NS10s, it doesn't really quite occur to me that the kick is that loud, especially in that attack. So yeah, that's idea 16. Okay, 17 is kind of diving into the Focusrite ISA preamps, which are the 828 Mark II preamps. It's an 8-channel preamp, kind of a Neve kind of style. It has kind of that vibe, I guess, but they're a little more clean. I think these are fantastic preamps. They're really nice, actually. They have a lot of flexibility. It's almost an interface in a way, because if you have the digital card, you can use it as a line input. So you can use it as just a preamp input, but also a line input, and also as like an insert. So you have three different inputs on the back, and then you have DIs in the front. So there's a lot of ways you can get sound and signal into this thing. But the best tip I have about it, and I still have to build this, is to take a DB25 cable and build an 8-channel padded snake. So do that 20 dB pad idea with the U pad, and I'd have to solder it. But the ISA preamps, they don't like having a lot of amplitude coming into the preamps. They don't like that, but they sound really nice. They sound really nice if you push the output. And I really can't do that with the built-in card. So what you need to do is actually go let's see here, it would be the line out, and then go into the return of the insert. And so it's really it's set up for that. It's set up to basically have an out and in, and you could set up a bank of compressors or EQs right into the thing and take them in and out of circuit just by using that insert. But it's also set up just to be different ins and outs. So it's not just an insert that's unbalanced, it's fully balanced out and in. So it's a very flexible unit. It's a staple here at the studio, and they sound really nice when you push them. You just got to have a pad So diving into that and, just exploring that. Number 18. This one I'll have to borrow from somebody, but the ISA 428, which is the 4-channel version, and that has the variable high pass. So maybe this is actually something to cover on either the Soyuz Lakeside preamp or the AEA RPQ2. The RPQ2 has a 3 dB high pass filter. I have no idea how they made that, because a first order high pass filter is 6 dB. So who knows how they got a half of a element in a circuit, half of a capacitor or whatever. But it's a 3 dB super gentle high pass. Okay, and the benefits of using a sweepable high pass. Because when you have a sweepable high pass, now you can get closer to a mic with a vocalist. And when you are closer, now you can make the best of a less than ideal room. You get less room in the mic, one thing causes another. It's a cause and effect situation. That's 18. Okay, so idea 19 is how to fake a stereo room mic. You could free up 2 channels. I kind of covered this recently, the SK10 and the Snare Buzz plugin. So yeah, free up 2 channels. So you could actually get a room mic. You could record a room mic if you free up those 2 channels, or you could also raise the overhead slightly and get the balance right, and then you compress to increase that room sound. And then really, to fake a room sound, I'm not sure why I didn't put this down, but to fake a room sound, the best way to do it is to put an indirect microphone somewhere in the room. 2 mics, actually. You want 2 mics where they can't see the drums. That's very important. You don't want them to see the drums. I don't care if you put them in a back of a guitar amp, okay? You just got to have them just in the room, but somewhere weird where they can't see the drums. Then you take those mics, you send those to a reverb, and now you have something that's a little bit more realistic sounding. You need that kind of diffusion, indirectness to really sell the effect. So that's what you need. It can also make a really cool effect just on its own if you just really compress them. But yeah, send those indirect mics to a reverb, and you get a pretty believable room sound. So that is 19. Number 20 is happy snare. Drum tuning, drum tech, just to make the drums sound happy. I know it's kind of weird, but sometimes a drum just isn't happy. It's not having it. It's not sounding great. It seems like it's just off. Maybe it's having a bad day. But there are some things that you can do. You can kind of notice in the equipment that, okay, this is kind of an area that I should stay away from. And this tuning area is something that works really well for this drum. So just talking about how to really, do some drum tuning, drum muffling on a snare drum and make it sound really better. So sometimes, like if you have a snare drum that just doesn't want to tune too low, in a weird way, it actually will sound deeper when you tune up, because the way that it's resonating is actually fuller at a slightly higher frequency. And so you get to that slightly higher frequency, and then all of a sudden it's just like, man, it's got so much body. An example would be, imagine the tone of like a conga. It's like that perfect like ding ding, and there's kind of a deep snare tuning that a lot of people like, and that's fine, but not all drums can do it. Some drums just lose all kind of resonance that low. If you take that drum, you tune it up, all of a sudden you get your fullness back. So yeah, number 20 is just basically tuning and tech for snare drums. Number 21, when you must bus your kick mics together. So this would have to do with like, EQing, high passing, just talking about the issues of using high pass. It basically messes with the phase, which is the timing. messes with the phase of your tracks if you high pass one and not the other, and they're supposed to be the same instrument. So it's better if you group these things together, you know, both snare mics, both kick mics, whatever. And so you group them together and you high pass at the bus level. You could EQ at the individual level, like for like a boost and a cut or whatever, but specifically a high pass, you don't want to mess with the phasing. And just talk about kind of the difference in bus processing there. 22. Let's see here. The Subkick, it's not lower, it's not pitch, it's about the punch and the complexity. Yeah, that'd be cool. So, talking about what makes a good Subkick sound, what you should be listening for. How do you know if it's in phase, if you have phase issues? Scooting it around in phase, you know, like slightly this way, slightly that way in the DAW. I have here that it's not about the pitch, it's about the punch. So, sometimes if you flip polarity on a mic, you'll hear it go real deep. And it might seem impressive at first, but it's almost not really usable in the context of a mix. It's like sub bass. It's like 808 type of sound. And that's not exactly usable if you're using an acoustic drum set. It's better to have something that's a little, you know, it's not even about the low end. It's about the comb filtering and everything else that happens, you know? There's so many effects that happen above that fundamental into the harmonics of the instrument that you just want to have your mics working together. The low end is just kind of your clue that something might be a little off. So yeah, you want to listen to that punch, okay? You want to listen to the punch. If you have a good punch, then your mics are most likely working together. That's what you want. 23. Again, you can put your votes in the comments on which one you think is cool. Feel free to vote on multiple videos. 23. How a kick out can destroy your snare sounds. So, you know, the kick out mic picks up other things. It's not just the kick. And depending on where your kick mic is, it could kind of be in conflict with the phase and the fullness of your snare drum. We could probably extend this out into kind of like the medium distance mics where there's like a front of kit mic where it's not really a kick out and it's not really, you know, a room mic. It's about the distance of an overhead to the snare, but it's out in front of the kit, maybe a little further away. So you can run into some weird issues with phasing and polarity there because it might work great for the kick, but then it kills your snare, and then you flip it to fix the snare, and now it kills the kick. So we can talk about those issues. So it'd be like, you know, front of kit mics or the kick out. That's idea 23. Idea 24. 2 compressors on overheads. So it's an overhead mixing idea. One to take down the snare, okay, and bring up the room. Another to add sustain to cymbals. Low ratio with a high pass. So this is interesting because it'd be like a 2-pass compression thing. And it's kind of similar to the overhead video earlier using saturation. But with this, it'd be kind of how to stack 2 compressors together to accomplish tasks. That's probably what we could do it with. We could do some vocal on this as well. You know, we could do just about any source, really. But the idea is to have a fast compressor and then a slow compressor. So if you like that idea and talking about using 2 compressors in series, one after the other, put your vote down for number 24. 25 is ways you can fight loud cymbals in a mix. This is probably a pretty good one. So you got to check your tom tracks. Make sure that the cymbals aren't coming in there. If you have to, you might want to edit. Check your room mics. Now you can set up, like specifically in the Empirical Labs Arouser, you can set it up to where it's more sensitive to 4 and 5K. Try that. Do about a 15 or 10 dB boost of your cymbals and your room mics, and the room mics will automatically turn down for you as the drummer plays the cymbals. But then if the drummer's just playing the hi-hat, then the room mic stays up and loud and more noticeable in the mix. So that's one trick you could do to fight bad cymbal bleed. Check your drum bus. Yeah, it could just be that you're compressing a lot and maybe too much. You could also go to like a 50-50 mix, reducing the compression overall. And then finally, the last tip for this is samples of the same kit, which are free of bleed. So you go through and you take the samples of real drums from your kit that you're recording and you layer them in about a 50-50 mix. Those samples do not have the cymbal bleed in them, and it kind of gets you through to make the mix passable. That was 25. 26. Small diaphragm versus large diaphragm on drum overheads. So what's the difference? Why you'd want one or the other? I feel like I've covered this a lot, but if you want that, 26. 27. SM57 and small diaphragm on snare top, worth trying. Yeah, this is a good one because I have an Audix i5 and a Rode NT55 taped together. The Rode NT55 has a 10 and a 20 dB pad on it, so you can put the 20 dB pad on it. Very helpful. It is a bright mic. It's a Rode, and it's surprisingly good on snare. So, go figure. It's like a secret weapon on snare. So if you want to hear more about that, that is the idea 27. 28, Alder Audio Showcase drum overheads, toms, undertom, guitar, vocal, acoustic. I've done a lot of this in the interview video, but we could dive more into kind of the cool drum recording techniques that Alder Audio has on their website. It's an amazing mic for like, kind of a crotch mic kind of placement, Glenn Johns kind of stuff. It has an amazing low end on the ribbon. So Alder Audio Showcase, that's idea 28. 29 is stereo bar shootout. Some are good for ORTF, which is like the Rode. Others are good for Bloomline, which is the AEA. And others are good for multiple mics on a guitar cab. And I have down here Vanguard. I believe they had just kind of a flat one. So going back to the Rode has this little offset feature, which allows you to have two mics that are not at the same, basically, altitude on the stand. One is a little higher. And regardless of what you do, whether it's XY or ORTF, if it's ORTF, you're going to have the backs of the mics basically conflicting and bumping into one another. So you got to have this little offset to make it fit. So honestly, the Rode is really my go-to stereo bar. Now, the AEA is much more heavy duty. Now, it is the length of basically two ribbons end to end, and it's great for Bloomline. So you could stack Bloomline, basically like XY kind of thing. And, it looks funny, but look at my other videos on the N8 stereo configuration or the AEA N8 review, something to that effect. I've done this in the past. So it's basically an R88, but with two active mics. And the N8 has a bump at like 5K. So for that reason, I didn't like as much as the R88. And then now I have a R88A, a prototype version, which is kind of a cool touch. So that is my go-to for Bloomline. Let's see here. Recording Studio Survival Kit. So that'd be kind of cool. So, different stuff that, you might want to have, like, a spare $10 bill, so when somebody grabs lunch for everybody, you can at least pay the person back. Thing of dental floss, some adapters that you commonly use, some batteries, stuff like that. That'd be a cool one. Okay, and here's 31, is underrated gear. So this could be any underrated gear that kind of is not on the radar, like the DBX 166. Talking about the DBX trick where you take the threshold all the way down at 0 ratio, or like 1-to-1 ratio. You take the threshold all the way down, and then you take the ratio and you just bump it up just a little bit until you start to get some action on the meter there. Let's see here, ratio. Oh yeah, and then the serial compression. So what you do is it's a two-sided compressor, and so what you do is you have like one side is the master because it's a stereo, or you could do like dual mono, but you wire it up as dual mono, like so you have compressor 1, compressor 2. But what happens if you have the master button set so they're linked together? Well, now the one compressor goes and it's like a cat, chasing its tail. It's like, you could have the first of the two be the slave unit, and then it goes into the master unit, which controls the slaves, so it's a really cool sounding way of compressing, and it really opens up some possibilities with stereo compression. Try it. You'll think it's cool. It's almost like an all buttons in mode for the 1176, but it's basically this like kind of secret weapon of very kind of a vanilla compressor, the 166. It actually sounds pretty cool. I've done it with my other like stereo compressors, and it works. Okay, so any stereo compressor will do, but the best is when they're like 2 mono and you can link them. Okay, so 30. I guess there is no idea 32. So idea 33. How to evaluate monitors and set up. So, I have like my NS20, NS10s here, and just talking about how, the amount that they're together increases the lows, like 200 hertz kind of area, kind of that warmth, and then the toe in is a good way to kind of strengthen that center image. So depending on how much you're lacking of those two, you can either go in or out, and then toe in or out. So just kind of a guide with that little trick. I haven't heard that talked about much. It's just kind of something I listen for. But then also covering the bases of the height of the monitors and the general kind of practice of like, put the tweeter at ear level, doing certain things to make sure you're not like in a corner of a room. Just doing certain things to make sure that you're getting the best out of your monitors, even if you're in a small setup, and just kind of how to set up your monitors in the best way possible. Number 34 is anti-mixing technique. This is a new one. This is something that I've kind of hinted at, but it is basically techniques that you can mix with without actually using plugins. So, polarity and phase and time, adding track delay, levels, automation, channel mixing, wideness. All these things are basically anti-mixing. I came up with the idea because in Italian food you have antipasta, and it's like, that's weird, like pasta and antipasta. And I'm like, well, we have mixing and anti-mixing. So these are ideas you can do to mix without actually using really plugins. You're just kind of using like a naked DAW. Okay. 35. Things you didn't know you could do with studio gear. Like using a mic for troubleshooting, using an amp, a guitar amp for a subkick, using headphones with no amp. Yeah, so you can, depending on your headphones, Some headphones are actually good enough, and the drivers are designed to be like a ton of different impedances, and they actually can sound okay just going into a line level output. I know that sounds crazy, but I've tried it with my Bear Dynamics, the Pro X. Yeah, the DT900 Pro X and the DT700 Pro X, and they sound pretty good. So just a little Y adapter cable to get me to the TRS left-right config, and there you go. It's pretty cool. The amp is a Subkick thing. That's just, you just got to find a way to convert that unbalanced to balanced and plug it into your Snake. So I've used a DI box, and it makes an amazing Subkick or sub mic. So yeah. 36 is the GK audio headphones for drums. And those are the Ultraphones by GK Audio. They're basically a Sony 7506 with the Peltor, sound earmuffs. And just got them. They sound well, bright and like a 7506 would, but for tracking with drums and actually hearing what's going on, it's a game changer. So I could do a little review on those. 37. Headphones into line out via adapter Y. Okay, that's a repeat. Okay, never mind. 38. 38 is about an adapter cable that is XLR male to 1/4 inch female. That's a weird one, but XLR male to 1/4 inch female. And what that gives you is you have let's say a 16 channel Snake, and they're all female connectors in front of a drum set. And instead of having to run some extra wire through the door or whatever, you can just use this adapter cable, and then you can go out of your interface, plug into your Snake wire. You'd have to patch into it. But in my setup here, I could literally just go 3 feet out of my monitor controller, make use of this very strange talkback mic on the monitor controller. Like, how the heck do I even use that? Well, this is how. You can just go right out of your monitor controller, go into your Snake channel 16. Now your Snake cable is carrying line level. Well, it'd be a little bit hotter than line level. The impedance would be different, but yeah, it should be fine. I wouldn't do speaker level, but headphone level. Send it down the Snake, and you just use this adapter cable, XLR male to the female 1/4 inch. So you can extend it using just any old XLR, and then you take that, and now you have a headphone send that goes right to the drummer or anywhere in your live room. So it's just a quick way of converting your Snake to go the other way and get a signal out. So yeah, that's a good one. Super easy, but always very helpful to have a couple of those adapters. 39, what to listen for in a drum kit. So this is like a drum tech thing. Kind of a deep dive into drum tuning, what to listen for, how to know if a drum is good for recording yet, or if you should keep trying. Some things are very hard to get right later on. It's better if you just fix it when you're teching the drum set. If your kick isn't the right pitch, there's not a whole lot you can do except for maybe do a kick drum sample or whatever. But, EQ is not going to change the pitch of a kick drum or a tom, okay? Like, these are certain things that you have to get right. And so, yeah. Number 39 is just teching a drum set. 40, idea 40 is drum mic setup mixing starts here. So this is like a close mic drums kind of philosophy where it talks about just how to set up different mics on the kit, things to look for. And there's my generator kicking on to do its weekly cycle. So yeah, this is just how to set up mics on a kit, basically. Idea 41. Reasons to mic the bottom of toms. Bottom tom mics, yes or no? Yeah, this is really cool because it really helps. It makes a difference. The toms are absolutely massive, and you have more low end than you know what to do with. So this can be a great way to use less than ideal mics, like 257s, you know, because a 57 doesn't have a ton of low end, but you can position a mic exactly where you want to on a bottom position. You can do it right in the middle of the drum. You could never do it on the top because the drummer would hit the mic. See where I'm going with this? So you can capture the middle of the drum, which is the fundamental frequency, with that bottom mic. So then what you do is you flip the polarity, and boom, you have your top end from the top, the attack, and then you have some low end sustain from the bottom. EQ, I usually take out some of that second harmonic, so if the drum is ringing in 80 hertz, then I usually find that bottom mic has a ton of 160. Okay, so you just go and just dip out the 160 by about 10 dB, a lot, okay? It's not flattering, so just take it out of there. And yeah, as long as the polarity is correct, that relationship is correct, you're going to have an awesome sounding floor tom. Okay, and the last one, 42. Visual tools for mixing. So I have several tools that I have. I have, I have this VU meter here, 2 VU meters. I'm not even sure why it's not working right now, which is really quite odd. But I have a couple VU meters, I have the dB meter, and I have a strobe tuner that is really comprehensive. I mean, it's like the SC5000. So it literally has 12 rolling strobes. And so as a bass guitar kind of plays through different notes, you can actually see it jump. And they're arranged in kind of the structure of a keyboard piano format. So you can actually see the notes jump around. So it's pretty cool. Okay, so let me know what you thought of this. Vote for your favorite ideas below. Talk to you soon.